listed workforce management group Adcorp Holdings Limited today announced that revenue increased by 41% to 5.7 billion rand. Now, strong performance coming from their blue-collar as well as white-collar staffing business. And to talk about the results today, we have Richard Pike, the Chief Executive of Adcorp, joining us in studio now. Richard, thanks so much for your time this evening.
You're welcome, thanks.
I'm very keen to find out what the driver behind the improvement in your blue-collar work services has been, given the fact that we all know that South Africa is burdened with labour strife in South Africa.
Yeah, on the face of it, I think the labour market in South Africa is not a particularly happy place. We've seen a lot of strike action and it's been prolonged. We've seen very high wage inflation. We've seen that coupled with the declining productivity of the labour force, and overlay that a lot of uncertainty around regulation and legislation. We've got new legislation pending as far as the Labour Relations Act is concerned, and those things have mitigated against employment in my view. That said, there are great opportunities. The more complex the landscape, the more uncertainty there is, the more that people struggle to navigate through a very difficult and stormy sea. That's played into the hands of people like ourselves. And so the kind of interaction and relationship that we have with clients now is quite different from the point of view that in the past we were just providing staff. Now we've become strategic partners, and we discuss these things and we try and unlock productivity. We try and help them be compliant and navigate these rough seas. So I think all of that's played into our hands. I think overall we've gained a lot of market shares. It helps the big players like ourselves, and we see quite a lot of tailwinds into the future as a result of that.
Richard, you say in your commentary here that I'm reading, it says here, whilst these trends are negative for overall employment prospects, what you've just been talking about, in a country already burdened by alarmingly high levels of unemployment, it does potentially favour contracting and outsourcing as alternatives to direct employment. So what you're really saying is that you have to keep very nimble, and as the employment and labour environment changes in South Africa, you have to change your business model as well. That's the first part of my question. The second part of my question, if you could remember it, is what is the disparity between the vacancies in South Africa and the skills that are available? So maybe number one, first of all, you have to keep nimble is what I was suggesting.
Very good point, Lindsay. We've in probably about 3-4 years ago, we've seen some of the trends that have taken place in Europe, in America, and very much there's been this move towards using one or other player as a kind of gatekeeper for all resourcing requirements. And that trend has played out in South Africa, and we are that player. We've won some good business. We positioned ourselves well for that, and I think it's played into our hands. I think the next part of your question is quite interesting. We live in this very paradoxical society where we have a massive unemployment rate. Officially it runs at 25%. If you include those people that are characterized or classified as discouraged from looking for work, it's 37%. So you have massive unemployment, and yet you have a skills shortage, and we think that there are probably 600 to 800,000 vacancies in South Africa that we can't fill. So, if you could kind of create the alchemy whereby you could take those unemployed, you could train them, you could work ready them and bring them into the workforce, definitely there are opportunities, but unfortunately that alchemy I talk about is lacking at the moment.
Richard, just looking at the Free Market Foundation, they're taking Parliament to court with regard to the Section 32, if I'm not mistaken, of the labour legislation. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's one issue that they're fighting about. It's around the minimum wage legislation, and the principle is that basically big labour and big business conspire in bargaining councils and negotiate minimum wages that basically conspire against the unemployed because they precluded those minimum wage levels. So I think that is their fight. Their fight is obviously they're taking on the fight of the small guy. The success of it, I don't know, that's going to be interesting to see.
Precedent setting?
Yeah, absolutely precedent setting. Already there's been a fight of that type of nature in the textile industry in Newcastle. It was one, it went the same way that the Free Market Foundation would like to see it go, but on a different principle. The principle was that the Minister of Labour hadn't applied her mind in setting the minimum wage as the wage across the whole industry sector. So I think it's going to be a very interesting one to watch, but it's obviously, I think one looks at where is that coming from, where is it born of, and definitely I think if you look at the labour market at the moment, it conspires against those that are unemployed. It's very difficult to bring the unemployed into the formal job market at the moment. So, we have a very strong working class, and I'm afraid that is at the expense of the informal sector and those that are unemployed.